Hello, my beautiful friends. Tracy Seawright here for Ready, Set, Reiki. So today I would like to introduce you to a really wonderful guest. I was fortunate enough to find her on Facebook, and she is graciously willing to come on Ready, Set, Reiki to share her journey. Her name is Mary Riposo, and she is a co-owner of Infinite Light Center and the founder of the CNY Reiki Association. As a Reiki practitioner for over 20 years, Mary has taught and shared the healing benefits of Reiki for both people and animals. Welcome, Mary, to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So let's begin our journey together. So I only gave our listeners a little bit about you, but there is so much more. Amazing journey that you have been on. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I live in central New York and I live with my husband, who is a yoga teacher. So we're kind of like an energy family. And I grew up in this area about an hour away from where I live now. And most of my family is still in this area. So we're in the Northeast. And I worked as a psychologist before I started practicing Reiki. So that's kind of my background. Um, I spent a lot of years, more than 20 years, helping people heal from the psychological part of it, from the emotional part of it. And I worked in schools, hospitals, clinic settings, all of those kinds of things within mental health. And I was pretty sick as a child. So I spent a lot of time in bed. I had like lots of respiratory issues, bronchitis, pneumonias, recurring things like that. So I was kind of sick as a child quite a bit. And I, I'm definitely more of an introvert anyway. So I enjoyed spending quiet time alone. And I developed more of like this internal world that kept me occupied, get me through my days and things like that. So I've always been interested in what's kind of like beyond the physical. And my father died when I was very young. And I spent most of the time with my grandmother. She kind of raised me. My mother was working and all that kind of thing. But my grandmother was a really interesting person. She taught me a lot about Christian mysticism. She was kind of this type of woman she had a deep connection with the Christian saints, almost as if like they were her friends and she would talk about them and that type of thing, as if like I started to feel like I knew them. So that was something that I was kind of immersed in as a child. It was kind of a magical thing. And, I also loved nature and animals. I had dogs, cats. I had a horse when I was growing up and I rode in horse shows. So there was also that connection with the animals and a feeling like I could really communicate with them. So those are kind of some of like the little bit of the backstory about where I come from.
Oh, and I'm sorry for the loss of your father. Yeah, I recently lost my dad a few years ago, so I'm sorry for that. Well, how wonderful of your journey of, it's part of your journey to take you where we're gonna next question is when did the Reiki come into your life?
Oh, wow. I like to say that Reiki kind of found me when I needed it, right?
Yes,
Which I
yes.
think I've talked to a lot of, people in our field and how that kind of seems to happen. It's like this trend that I've seen with people. But I was, like I said, I had been sick when I was a child. I was recovering from this illness that kind of really knocked me out when I was an adult, and nobody could figure out what was going on. I was working in mental health, like I said, and I was in a hospital setting, a clinic setting, and I had this really massive caseload of clients who were released from inpatient and they were coming to me for outpatient therapy and really like heavy caseload of difficult clients who had a lot of challenging issues. And I would say I was booked out for evaluations and clients for more than a year out. It was just this heaviness that like I couldn't take any time off. There was no way of like getting a week of vacation off. And I think I hadn't taken a day off in more than 3 years. I was super like close to burnout. And at that time, I remember they started to do a renovation of our building and we had to work through it. And like I said, I had always had this respiratory issues and, weakness in that area. And so I was breathing in particles from dust and demolition stuff. And they were putting in carpeting with that toxic fumes and all of that type of thing. And I remember just sitting in that office day after day and feeling like my chest was feeling heavier. I was feeling sick. I was feeling tired. And I just kept working through it until I couldn't work through it at all. And I just ended up going out on sick leave. And I would go from doctor to doctor and they couldn't figure out what was going on. It was like the respiratory thing, but then I had rashes and I had joint pain and I had fatigue and I couldn't get out of bed and I was dizzy and I, couldn't see very well and all of this weird stuff. It was kind of a mystery. And some of the treatments, I have to say, actually made me feel sicker. So I started to think like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I ended up having to move out of my apartment because it was mold growing there and I didn't realize it. So I move away. And during this recovery period, I started to even more want to be seeking something else, a different way of life, a different way of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just, needed to heal from this burnout. So I ended up going to this wellness fair locally. And I had a short Reiki session. I was walking around kind of looking at the booths and what people were doing. And I was drawn to this one woman who had purple tie-dye shirt on and things like that. And she had this purple sign that said Reiki, and I had no idea what it was. And I was like, I'll try that. What the heck? Right. And I would say, looking back, it might have been like a 10-minute session. I mean, really one of those little mini sessions, not on a table like we do often now, sitting in a chair, sitting in like a banquet chair, straight back chair. And I remember for the first time feeling like I had energy. And I thought, in my way of thinking at the time, she is giving me something. She is like pouring something into me. She has something that I don't have and she's giving it to me, but I didn't care. I was like, I need more of this stuff. I was like, what is it? Where do I get more? How do I do this? How do I feel like this all the time? And so I started to get Reiki sessions after that. And pretty soon, my Reiki therapist, I'll call her, she said, you could take some beginning Reiki training and you could start practicing Reiki on yourself in between our sessions. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, for one thing, I feel like I have no energy. I feel weak. I feel tired. I'm feeling better from the sessions, but I don't think I could ever do that. So I was again putting, something on her that she had something that I would never have. Right. I've changed my mind about that pretty quickly, but I ended up doing it. I learned Reiki for myself. I took level 1. And my goal was to come back into balance, right? To relieve my physical symptoms, come back into balance and that type of thing. And it definitely wasn't to open a Reiki business at all. And I realized through practicing, and especially through the self Reiki, that I became aware of where things were out of balance in my life and what choices I was making that were not really supporting my wellness and all of those types of things. And it also gave me the clarity about what I needed to do about making changes around those things. So it wasn't that somebody was healing me from the outside, giving me energy, pouring something in like a gas tank or anything like that. But I started to feel better once I started to make those changes and listen. And I actually lost weight. I felt more positive about life. And remember, I said I was a real introvert. I was able to start talking to people more. I was interested, like curious about, interacting with people more, which was unusual for me. And at first, I had no idea that that was part of the healing because I only thought of it as physical because I was feeling out of balance physically at the time. And that's why I was going for it. And I think a lot of people do think Reiki is, physical healing, maybe. A lot of times people come to me for a session and that's kind of what they, they talk about too, like what can it help me with? And they think about physical. But when people started to ask me, what are you doing? You seem like you're feeling better. You seem like you're happier and things like that. And I told them about Reiki. And then that's when it started to happen. People were like, you need to show that to me. I need to do it. And I don't, and I'd say like, oh, go to my Reiki person. No, I want you to do it.
Oh.
So they were asking me for sessions. And then it turned into they wanted to learn how to do it themselves. So I ended up completing my training, and it was the impetus to teach other people. But it was really organic. It was like I was not thinking, oh, I'm going to have this, you know, uh, this business and open a wellness center and do this for the rest of my life. So, you know, I eventually did quit my job, opened a full time Reiki practice. And then my husband and I opened a wellness center, and we ran that for more than 10 years. And, you know, then it's kind of like that's been going on for more than 20 years for me. So I exclusively practice and teach Reiki. And it's just my life at this point. So that's kind of the way that it found me. That's kind of like the evolution of long story short, but that was it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Many people don't understand that there's multiple systems of Reiki. What are the systems of Reiki that you've studied?
Well, oh my gosh, I have done a lot of different Reiki styles. So at first, I learned Usui Shiki Ryoho. That was my first instance, right? When I said I, you know, went to Reiki training. And I didn't even know at the time that there was any difference, that there were different systems of Reiki. So that was the beginning. And I took that training. And then I took Usui Reiki Ryoho. And then I took Gendai Reiki. No, then I took Shambhala Reiki. Then I took Gendai Reiki. And then I took Fire, Usui Holy Fire Reiki, Holy Fire Karuna Reiki. And I think there were a couple other ones too that I can't, not like bringing up on top of mine, but
Sure.
I was one of those people that was a seeker for a while. I was like, you know, gaining one certificate after another. I need to learn a different style. Now I need to learn this other style.
Right, right.
Wow.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I kind of similar journey as you as well, where you were seeking that more, you know, until you find that just right, or that just right for the client that's with you. So yes.
The Goldilocks Reiki.
Yeah, the Goldilocks Reiki. There we go.
The just right one.
Yeah, the just right. So you've been doing this for quite some time now. You've been out teaching, supporting others. You were an author. You've done some amazing things. What are some of the misconceptions that you find that people tell you or question you about Reiki?
You know, this is a really good question for me because I spend a lot of time as I'm teaching and as I'm coaching people and mentoring, really kind of helping people demystify and bring in information that kind of blast through those misconceptions, because we all have these blind spots. And because Reiki isn't standardized or anything like that, there's just like, we kind of fill in the blanks sometimes in between. So there are lots of them. And I think that in a way it's hard to pick just one. But I think the one I was talking about that I was kind of alluding to before was like, I felt when I first had a Reiki session, the energy was being poured into me from the outside. And I kind of jumped to the conclusion in my own mind that the practitioner was giving me energy, that it was, you know, and I felt sick and weak. So it was kind of a logical conclusion like, oh, all of a sudden, I don't have any of this within me. I didn't realize that, you know, it was something that can be awakened within us, that we already have that, like as a really empowering kind of understanding and belief. And I thought that Reiki was something that was channeled from one person to another. So it was kind of like being sent through the hands or sent from one person to the other. Like this person, you know, Reiki master had all this wonderful, powerful energy that she was kind of giving me a little bit of. But I really, I try to help people understand from a different point of view that as a practitioner, we create the space for that healing response. And it happens within every one of us. We all have a healing response. We all have Reiki within us.
Mhm.
It's just kind of activated within a session. And so it really starts to bloom and activate within us. And I think that's kind of more of an Asian way of understanding how energy healing works rather than like that Western way of like it's transactional and like you give it to me and then I give you some money or something like that at the end.
Mhm. Right.
And I think it's such a big deal because when we think a practitioner is doing something to us, giving something to us, um, for one, we can become disempowered. Like it's not us, it's someone else doing the healing to us. And we think that we need something outside of us to make us whole. And we also can put that person on a pedestal, create this imbalanced relationship. And then we may also think that you need to have physical touch in order for healing to happen because the person is, touching you and, making you healthy again or something like that. So that's one of the big ones that I talk about all the time.
Wonderful. And even do you find when even people see the word Reiki, there's that trigger that comes up? I was at an event and a woman came up and she said, Reiki. Yeah, that's not for me. And walks off. And it's like, that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
But even the word
Mm-hmm.
seems to bother people. And, your husband is a yogi and I'm a yogi as well. He probably experiences that as well in the yoga, community when people see yoga, like, oh, I don't do that. So many misconceptions out there. So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful that you're, out there and you're helping individuals and educating them, to make it more professional, more accessible to all. Wonderful. So you are a mentor, you are a coach, you have helped so many people on their journey to wellness. Well, what has been one of the biggest struggles or challenges you faced in your own healing journey?
Well, there have been a lot for sure. No question about that. Um, but I think that, like, when I first opened my Reiki practice, I thought this is like the best thing in the world. I was so passionate about Reiki, and I thought people are just going to be flocked to this. Oh my gosh. It didn't have anything to do with me, but I thought Reiki is so wonderful. It's helped me so much. Of course, people are going to see that. And like you said, they kind of were like giving me the side eye about like, what I don't even know what that word means, but I don't think it's for me. Right. I just was very naive about it. And, I had no idea, like I had no business experience from the start, right? So I was just like a mental health therapist, right? Psychologist. And I knew how to work with people one on one. And I just had this really strong calling to share Reiki with others. Like I said, it was so passionate. And I didn't really realize that my intention wouldn't be enough to create the successful business. I had to learn a lot of business stuff. I had to learn how to create systems, how to manage money because, I was always working for someone else. So I never, like asked for money, had to get over a lot of blocks about
Mm,
being shy about asking for money, dealing with how to manage money, how to do marketing. Being an introvert, it was super hard to promote. Um, and so the thing that really got me through that was that I believe so much in the power of Reiki to help people that I was like, you have to get over yourself.
mhm,
You just have to, I kind of like coached myself through it. I was like, you need to just get over yourself. I just kept sticking with the deeper why and what Reiki had done for me. And it was almost like it was a calling that had to be fulfilled. Like, I think one time I went to a psychic that said, oh, honey, you are living a serve or suffer lifetime. And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, unless you do service, you are going to suffer your way through this. And I was like, you're right. I feel like I just need to give back. I really do. And I don't feel like I'm, somebody that's just going to like go into like business for business or anything.
mhm,
So, I would say if I had it to do over with, I wouldn't do anything differently. But because each challenge was there were a lot of challenges,
Mhm.
but each one of them helped me to learn something like super important. And now when I help people start their Reiki business, grow their Reiki business, learn all of those types of things, I do it from experience and from like all of the hard stuff that I was like, oh, I remember that really well. I can help you figure that out.
Mhm.
Not from like, oh, I'm a business coach, and I can just tell you because, I'm a small business person. I figured it out from like all of the failures. And yeah, I think you just have to fail in order to learn and to be successful in the end.
Sure, sure. I mean, you've walked the journey here, right? And being of service and helping others along the way. I don't know if you have seen the pattern, but in 2020, it seems that there have been many to have come forward to the call of this service and going out and I would say it would be uncommon for me to find someone who just has one modality. They have multiple things that they're pursuing or passionate about. And when they receive that call, they're so either enthusiastic or maybe they question themselves, can I do this? And then they take that step forward. And then as they're navigating, they're like, oh my goodness, now there's social media. And now I got to do invoices. Now I have to do this. And it gets kind of overwhelming. And certain things, should I make it an LLC? Should I trademark this? Just things they never would have thought about, just simply because they had connected with this energy and they want to share it. They want to do this. They feel the call to be of service. So it's wonderful that you were able to go through your journey and put these tools together, everything from books to your journals. I mean, amazing. So thank you for doing that and taking those, as you may color them, failures and turn them into kind of a map for people to show them how to go.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it really is like that.
Yeah.
You said it exactly.
So, you had shared your story from your childhood about the loss of your father, illnesses. Looking back, what do you wish your younger self knew about Reiki?
Hmm. Well, I mean, maybe my younger self in terms of like when I was first learning Reiki, which was about maybe 25 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, I think I remember saying to you a little while ago that I was like, I didn't even know that there were different styles of Reiki and
Mhm.
things like that. I think I wish I had known a little bit more about maybe the origins of Reiki, the traditional Japanese practices, like where it came from, even that it was a system. Like I definitely did not know what you know, the backstory of Reiki was, or that it was a system. I thought it was simply hands on healing, right? I was one of those people. Again, that's a misconception
Mhm.
that I try to help people with all the time. Um, but, I didn't realize, I didn't realize any of that. And I had this kind of this blind spot because, like I had said earlier, too, that I was growing up in this Christian metaphysical kind of, world. So, you know, when I was introduced to Reiki, there were all of these overlays of, angels and spirit guides and all of this kind of thing. Like, so this overlay of Christianity, of shamanism, of Ayurveda. And I took all of those in to think that those were all part of the system of Reiki and where it came. And so I ended up kind of taking a step back and saying, I really want to learn more about what the truth of all of this is. So I went to, just almost become like a self proclaimed Reiki scholar in a way. I wanted to just deconstruct all of those things and bring it down to where did it come from? So I was viewing Reiki from the eyes of somebody who had, grown up in where I had grown up. So I was seeing it in that way. Um, but I think that it's important. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about the styles so that maybe I could have like chosen one that really
Mhm.
would have worked for me from the start
Mhm.
or that was more traditional because I really love the traditional part of it. I don't necessarily like as much, but all the stuff that I had kind of done myself, like using crystals and pendulums and all of those types of things. they're all kind of more of a Western way of
Hmm.
practicing Reiki, and they're fine. But as I've learned from them, I also then bring it down to the very basic, simplest of the, Japanese perspective, that you don't need all of those either, you
Right.
know? So
Right.
I kind of wish I had known more of like what the history of what the whole thing was all about before I jumped into it. But even with that, it's okay because you learn and you evolve and everything is exactly the way it should be.
Very good. I feel the same way too. I started with the Azui, and the manual that I received, it was passed down from teacher to teacher. And so when I got mine, I would read through it, and I still had a lot of questions, and it seemed like there was some missing pieces in the lineage that I came from. And all I had known at the time, I had lost my sister, and I was going through all the modalities and things, and I had a steady practice of yoga. And it was my friend that would circle back and say, "You got to try Reiki, you got to try Reiki." And I thought that was the only one. And then I found out about Holy Fire, and then I got a hold of the Healing Touch, and I'm like, whoa, like here's everything together, like a whole story. And oh my goodness, like it really put it all together for me with that. So I had wished I had known about Holy Fire first, or at least the Healing Touch manual, and then finding out, other books and things and other systems, and it's like a whole other world out there. So yeah, same.
I didn't even have a manual for my first class or my
Yes.
second class,
Yes.
to think of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting how that goes. Like at first, maybe you don't really need a lot, but
Mhm.
I was really like thirsty for the information
Mhm.
about, who are these people and where did they come from and what was the timeline and what was going on at the time and what did they believe and how did it develop and all of that kind of thing. I had a lot
Right,
of
right.
questions like you.
Right. And when I wrote my manual, because in the lineage I was from, like I would take the manual and then I would write it and do it for my students. And when I came to El Paso and I was training some individuals here who had different systems that they studied, and they were like, oh my goodness, like we had just like PDFs, like we didn't even have a manual, and you have a whole manual. And you recently shared on Facebook recently about an article about Azui and about someone else who might have really had the credit for it. And that was an interesting read too. So know that it's a constant learning, and things do change as, you know, they find, papers or notes, from students of Azui, or something was mistranslated, and we're trying to decode all of this. So it's good to stay relevant on this information.
Oh, 100%. And if anybody listening is really interested in that, Justin Stein is a great resource. He has books. His most recent book is Alternate Currents about
Mhm.
Takata. But just look him up, and that article was written by him.
Yeah, yeah. So that's was fascinating, because I remember I was listening to William Rand, uh, a lecture he was doing, and he was saying that, hey, there's some information that's coming out that may change history a little bit, and so be on the look for that. And then even when I'm out and sharing it with practitioners who've been doing this for 10, 15 years, I'll say, hey, did you know this information? And they're like, no. No, and they've been teaching it a certain way. And even when that information came out, I go back to my students and say, hey, I just want to let you know this is what's happening. This is the information. You might want to bring that into your teaching as well to stay relevant.
Yeah. And don't you think like that's one of the downfalls of not having standardized anything, like no overarching, you know, um, I don't want to say governmental agency, but no, association or something like that that would distribute that information to everybody that is practicing and teaching. It would be
Yes.
kind of great. I mean, there's positives and negatives, but we're the ones that have to end up kind of like trying to share to as many people as we can when new information comes out.
Right. And I remember when I first taught, and I know my teachers I had two teachers that taught the class, and they're very dedicated, very intelligent women. But I was pretty sure in the lecture I heard that, Azui and Hitachi did not have manuals. And then so I taught my first class and I said that. And then when I went to do the Holy Fire, I thought, no, it was Madame Takata that didn't have this. Oh my goodness. And here's the Hitachi healing guide. And I had not seen that until I got my healing touch book, right? And then I'm like, my goodness, I've been teaching people. And my background is an elementary school teacher. So that's really important to me. I mean, I know once upon a time I taught that Pluto was a planet, right? That's taught about the Berlin Wall, the USSR, things that aren't relevant. And I'm like going back and telling the students, no, this is it. Make sure you know this. And you feel
Mm-hmm.
horrible. But that's what I learned at the time. But it's also
Exactly.
the courage to say, hey, you know what? I learned and now I know, and then I'm going to fix it.
Yeah. And when you know better, you do better.
Yeah. Yeah, but it would have been nice to have that one type of here it is, all the information. And so that's why when I went from Azui to Azui Holy Fire, it was like, this is making sense. I have a timeline here. I know where it was, where it's continuing. So, yeah.
Love it.
So, when it's time for you to get an energetic tune up, what qualities do you look for in a Reiki practitioner?
Mm. Well, I do check people out before I decide to go to somebody. And I recommend that for anybody that is going to see a practitioner. I like to get a referral, like a reference from somebody. I like a word of mouth, like, oh, I've been to that person before and I really like them because of whatever it is. So I usually look them up online, whether they have a website or a Facebook page or something. What I'm looking for is information about their perspective, maybe their background in terms of what their training is. Like we were talking about, because Reiki isn't regulated, you don't know what you're getting, so it's good to do your research. I think like someone who's completed their Reiki training is good, typically. I like to know what style of Reiki they practice, whether they combine different modalities. Um, and if I'm looking at their website or, their social page, I like to see transparency, like, especially on their website. Like if they actually put what their offers are, like describe them and put their prices up, because we were in the roundtable yesterday. We were talking about pricing and how people, when you see on somebody's website, like what this offer is, but then you have to like get in touch with them to find out
Mm-hmm.
how much it costs. It's like just that next step is just like, it stops you in your tracks. So I like to see like, this is my price. I'm comfortable with it. So just state it right out there. I love to see that. And like, this is one of my really big pet peeves. I like to see a photo, a picture of what that person,
Mm-hmm.
just a headshot. I don't care what it looks like, if it's outside, if it's with your kids, I don't care, but just to like you get an energetic impression
Mm-hmm.
of like who that person is. Like I remember, picking when I was doing my PhD, picking professors based on, you have this little like manual type thing of to see like who's who and where they, what classes they teach. I'd look and I'd be like, nope. And I'd be like, oh, that person I can learn from.
Right.
Why? Just an energetic, intuitive hit, right? So
Right.
I like to see a photo of the practitioner, a photo of their place if I'm going to in person. Like, so many times people will say, like, oh, they had this great business name. It was like center for something. And then it was someone's house in the side door of their house. And I was like, I don't think I'm in the right place. Right. So it's okay. It doesn't matter what the place is, as long as you kind of know, like, I'm going to be going into, and it's going to be on a city street or it's going to be in a plaza. You kind of just want to know. And then I think the more important thing is like within the session, um, I love a practitioner that's on time, that doesn't make me wait like super long. And that keeps to the time of our session that we book. Like if it's an hour session, I usually have to do something after, like see a client or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So I love it if, they keep to the timing. Even though so many of my clients and colleagues say, well, I give people way more time than we book. Like it's an hour session, but we usually spend 2 hours. And I'd be like, my heart will be palpitating if it got to be an hour and a half because I know I have to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not going to help me. I kind of really need to know and plan and be able to be feeling safe and secure within that time frame that everything is going to happen that needs to during that time frame. And then I'm going to be able to get to my next thing without feeling like I have to speed across town or something like that.
Right, right. It's
You
interesting
know?
you said about the price because there's a place here in El Paso. It's like a bike shop, and it's also a restaurant, very nice. And my husband had gone in to look at the bikes, and I said, "What did you think about it?" And what he didn't like about it is none of the bikes had the prices on it. And he said, "If it doesn't have a price on it, it's too expensive for me."
I
But
like it.
I had an opportunity to have Christian Stone on. And we did like a group where we did a red flag, green flag about practitioners. And it was the idea that what if the practitioner, let's say they're old school and they don't have a website, maybe they have an outdated photo, right? I mean, they have that one picture from 20 years ago that looks perfect. Do you think that's a red flag? For someone who, I don't have a booking system, you can text me or call me, I don't have a website.
I don't. I actually don't. I kind of feel like I get it if somebody's like maybe old school or older or non-techie or something like that,
Mhm.
because a lot of people in our field are. They don't
Mhm.
like tech.
Mhm. Mhm.
But even if I see like, I like to see a current picture, but even if I see like a picture that's like pixelated or a little bit older and you can tell like maybe it was a 20-year-old picture, I still get their energy. I still get it. I don't care if they don't have like, I like it if they have a booking system that's easy that I can just click on and put my, credit card information in. Makes it so much easier. And I
Mhm.
recommend that to my clients and everything. But I still might do it. I still might be like, well, you know what? I'm going to try it. And if everything seems clunky, like if everything seems clunky, like they're not there on time or then I'd be like, all right, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But may not be a red flag for me.
Okay. This might really age me, but I remember when I needed a doctor, I'd moved somewhere and I was trying to find a doctor. And remember the telephone books, right? We didn't open up the
Hmm.
telephone book.
I'm old
And
enough for sure.
and so, I look at the doctors, and I'm like, okay. And I look down and there was the name Dr. Mary Baker. I'm like, that's my doctor. I could just feel. And this was way before. I mean, I was like 23 years old and I felt that like, yeah, that's my doctor. And she was a fantastic doctor, helped me deliver 4 of my children, and that was my doctor. So just the energy from that name. So,
Yeah, somebody could be mentioning a name to you and you're
mhm.
like, oh, there's something to that. I have to remember that person and I have to go see them.
Yes, very good, very good. So, as a mentor, as a coach, as a teacher, you've been in this business for so many years. You've got a beautiful books and journals. What advice do you give someone who's just entering this spiritual work?
Mm. Well, I think that we need more and more people doing spiritual work right now. I think it's like crucial right now. So I would really encourage anyone who feels that calling, that kind of has a doubt or is not sure to consider doing it. Um, and I know there's imposter syndrome, there's fear, there's all the things that can pop up to stop us. But there's also a lot of help out there now. There's so many more mentors and coaches and,
Mhm.
so many more support people that can help you do it. You don't have to do it alone like I did. I had to figure out every little
Mhm.
step, on my own. And I remember, kind of reaching out to people. There were a few Reiki people in my area, reaching out to them, and they were like, ooh, like I have this thing that is new and people are coming to me. So I'm not going to share that with you.
Mhm.
But I think now there's so much more. I mean, the people I know, like you and all the people in our Facebook groups and all of that, they seem to be so supportive and so willing to share strategies and things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I
I
love
think
it.
that just encouragement of, to do it and to know that there are going to be challenges. You will fail, and it's just part of it. So don't let that stop you either, because, embrace that. When you fail, that means you're learning something. You can
Mhm.
continue to be persistent, pick yourself up, continue to work to learn maybe what was it that you didn't do right. You can learn how to do it. And then the other thing is, I always say, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end. Because
Mm.
we always see all these people that look very glossy and beautiful on, Facebook and Instagram and everything. And they look like their business is thriving, right? They look great. All of their, graphics are beautiful, but they may be at the middle. They may be at that,
Mhm.
that pinnacle of their business, and they may have a team working with them. They may have so much help and support, and we're doing it like all on our own, and we're
Mhm.
in the beginning. So it can feel really hard, like, oh, I'll never get there. I just think, stick to it. Know that you're in the beginning and you're not somebody that you should be comparing
Mhm.
yourself to, like Oprah or something like that. It's not a fair thing. So just know that you can do it and you can get help for it, and don't, fear reaching out to others for support.
Right. And I'll give the listeners an example. So, and you have, you're training students, right? As I train students, they go out and you see our students' success, and that's fantastic. And we want them to go out and share the gift of Reiki. And it kept being this idea that you need to get a space, because I was either going to people, and this is for the yoga as well. And it got to the point that I couldn't find a space, that I turned my little Jeep into Beep Beep the Yoga Jeep. I would go to them. So I would go and I would do these things. I'd have people come here. I did the 70-30% at different studios where I taught the Reiki and everything. But I think the collective was, you need a space, you need a space, you need a space. And here, the commercial property in El Paso is quite expensive. I mean, you wouldn't think so. You would think this is like New York, the way they price the property here. So I found something that I would say, looking back, wasn't right, but was just right at that moment. So I got this little small space. I decorated it beautifully, and I was working out of it, and it was doing quite well. But here we go. Parking became an issue. Here there's not that much regulation. It wasn't even paved. It was like sand here because it's in El Paso. A restaurant next door, super popular, had a drive-through in the back. People would park behind my clients. It was becoming a point where the clients didn't want to come because they were nervous they couldn't get this parking spot. And so it was a situation where I actually didn't sign a lease. And I was about 5 months in, and I thought, you know what? After a situation where the students were feeling like there's nowhere to park, I thought, I don't think this is working. But it was this idea that if people think I pack up and leave after 6 months, that I'm a failure and that I'm not making money, which was the opposite. This space could fit like 5 yoga students. It can fit, Reiki student or practitioner or a client in the back. But it was like, you know what? I have to do what's best for me. This doesn't feel right now. And I decided, you know what? Can you find somebody else to take my spot? And the owner did, and I moved out after 6 months. And it was the idea that, you know what? I'm supposed to be going out to other people in other places. And I had to be okay with that saying, you know what? It may look like on the outside I might have failed, but I was doing well. And I thought, this just isn't for me. It didn't feel right. It wasn't flowing. The clients and students were having a difficult time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to let it go. And then by letting it go, the very next day, I got a big job opportunity, right? And things kept coming. So have faith that your path may not be as someone else's, and that's okay. You give it a try. And if it doesn't feel good, have the courage to say, you know what, this isn't for me. And just say, you know what, I'm moving on to something else. So
I love that. And I call that following the energy, like kind of following your intuition and
hmm
what's kind of opening up for you.
hmm
That's like the opposite of failure, because internally you're listening to what's really working. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
it just gave me chills to hear like you got that job opportunity as soon as you
hmm
let go what wasn't serving
Oh,
you.
yeah. Yeah. I got
That's amazing.
two big opportunities. But I mean, and the other thing I had is I had contracts, multiple. Yeah, I've where I teach at the college and I teach for the veterans and I teach at the border patrol. So I had other things going on that was helping supplement the space as well. Again, it wasn't like a huge amount of money a month I was paying on it, but I went to another space here and I thought, okay, I will just do the 70/30 contract with them. I walked in with my mat, my little Bluetooth. I did an hour session with students and then I walked out and I thought, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Just go to other places and get out of there instead of having my own. And it just felt right in my body. So, listeners, listen to yourself because it may be a different journey for you. Because I would do the same thing. I would look and be like, oh my goodness, I'm working so hard. And here I'm doing a yoga class and I have 5 people and I'm looking on Instagram and this person is 25. What's wrong with me? Am I a terrible teacher? Like, why isn't this happening? So it's that vanity matrix where they're going to put the great classes on there, like, oh, they're not there when it's just one or no one shows up, right? That's like the day in, day out. So give yourself a little grace on that.
And that's exactly right.
All right. So the next one here, what books do you recommend?
My gosh. Well, I'm a book nerd for sure. I love books and I like to write books too. So I kind of have to say, I Grow Your Reiki Business book. And it's a Kindle book, which does not mean that you have to have a Kindle, but it's available on Amazon. And if you get it, you can read it on any device. It gives a lot of strategies for how to get clients and how to keep clients for Reiki. I also have the Reiki journals and practice trackers. They're kind of not a journal in terms of like, writing down your feelings and things like that, but it's a journal like, keeping track of how you practice and cheat sheets in there about different practices. And, there's a lot of great just ways of when my students fill those up, they're like, look at what I've done over time. I've been doing self Reiki for like all these weeks or all of these months. And now I'm bringing in, imbuing things and imbuing spaces. And here are the Reiki sessions that I've given, and they've documented all of those. But some other ones are Reiki Business Ready by Christian Stone. We talked about him, right? He's one of our friends. And he has a great book on Amazon as well. And then I just want to mention Radiating Our Reiki Light. It's by Ricky Friedman, and it's a compilation book. I put a little chapter in there about animal Reiki, and it's this really big book. And it's a book that you can, physical printed book. And it has she brought together so many Reiki practitioners who all have experience in different ways. And we all wrote these chapters. And it just is this wonderful book to just read as, anytime you can just open to a page and you'll get inspiration about how wonderful Reiki is and how it works. So I love those. I mean, there's a million more books, but just to start with those.
Let's start with those. Very good. So what services do you offer? Do you offer classes, events, and trainings?
Yeah. So I offer Usui Holy Fire Reiki sessions and classes, and I do teach all of the levels of Usui Holy Fire Reiki, but I also teach ICRT Animal Reiki. So there's a level 1 and 2 and a master level for that. But a lot of what I do is coaching Reiki clients, like coaching and mentoring. And I help people with starting, a professional practice, growing their practices and getting more clients and kind of creating a real business. Like, how we start, like, see how it goes. And then you're like, oh, I need this. And I don't really have a policy. I don't have a system for this or whatever. And I also am kind of one of those people that I like to create things. And so I have all of these printable resources that are called like done for you Reiki printables. I needed things like class certificates, and I needed forms for clients, gift certificates, and all of these things like aftercare recommendations and things like that. And so I thought, I'm creating these for myself. And my students are asking me, where do you get your certificates? And how do I make a gift certificate? I don't know how to do it. So I just started making those. And I create them so that they're done for you. So they're all, they look beautiful, but then they're also, and for many of them, they're PDFs in a way that you can write in your own information and then print them. So you can write your contact information, or anything about you, or the class certificates. You can put, of course, the students' names in there and all of that. So I have a whole bunch of those. And then, I do things like a lot of free things. Like I have an online Reiki circle once a month, and I have my Reiki Coach on Call podcast, my YouTube channel, and new. I just started writing on Substack. So that's kind of fun because I love writing.
Beautiful. So where can we find you?
So mainly at infinitelightcenter.com. That's my website. But you can look for me on Facebook under my name. My YouTube channel is under my name. And then my podcast is called Reiki Coach on Call. And so is my Substack. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
All right. Well, that ends the first part of our journey. I'm going to guide you into the second part, which is social media questions and questions from Reiki students. So here we go. Number 1, what inspired you to create the Central New York Reiki Association?
Well, I created the CNY Reiki Association a while back, like about 15 years ago. I had been teaching for a few years, and I started to get a bunch of students that wanted more opportunities to practice, to learn, to share, that kind of thing. And so then I started offering like Reiki shares. I did an annual Reiki retreat. And then people wanted more. They wanted to be like together, they wanted community. And I thought, this is great because I never had community when I first started out. So it was organically kind of driven in that way. And I created, it was local. So we called it Central New York Reiki Association. And it was for all levels of Reiki people. You didn't have to be a Reiki master, which was different at that time because many of the organizations needed you to be a Reiki master in order to. And the biggest thing that people got out of that, of course, it's still, in existence. But over time, people have said to me, the best thing about this is that we get to come together with like-minded people, other Reiki people that get us, that we can share with, that we can kind of, talk about life in terms of, through a Reiki lens, kind of figuring out what to do about certain things and all of that. It really is wonderful. We, especially during the time that we were able to get together in person, we do it online now, but we would get together in person and we would sit around an actual table and we would have a Reiki chat. We would just talk about, people would bring up topics and we would talk about those things. And everyone absolutely loved that. And then we would kind of break out and we would go to the Reiki tables and we would do, share Reiki with each other. It was a beautiful community idea to start with. And of course, I have bigger communities because, everything's online now and I love the access, but I still love that group of local people that still are there. And we still, they volunteer in the community. They do, workshops and trainings in the community. They do fairs and stuff like that, and just create access. I mean, one other thing we did too was we had a Reiki clinic for a long time. So it was an in-person Reiki clinic. We just opened it up to the public, and people would come in and just either observe if they weren't ready to even receive a session, or they would have a mini session, like a 20-minute session.
Beautiful.
It was really, really nice.
Do you recommend someone, just starting out in this journey of Reiki to join some type of association, like Reiki Association, Reiki Alliance, Reiki.org, or like one of like yours?
I don't think people have to, for sure. But there are some things that are good about them. I don't think you should spend a whole bunch of money on organizations because it isn't the type of thing that you need to, like some other career that you kind of do need to in order to be feeling like you're legit. It's not there yet with Reiki. But I do think that there are benefits. Like, for example, Some places have a listing that you, of course, they're going to put you on an online
Mhm.
listing. People find you. Like,
Mhm.
so I don't know how many times, because I'm in a few organizations like that. And so many times people will contact me through my listing for a session, for a class, or something like
Mhm.
that. So giving you just marketing visibility, I think is super important.
Yeah.
And depending on whether they have like what you're looking for, are you looking for connection? If you are joining an organization where people get together,
Mhm.
that would be great. If you're looking for visibility, that's good too. And sometimes people give resources. Like for mine, I have a whole like online platform that has resources like trainings and the printables and certificates and all kinds of like little things that you just click on and you get access
Mhm.
to. So if you're kind of looking for, I'd like to have more information and more all of that. I mean, I would say, just kind of look at what they have to offer first before you decide to pay for one.
Right. Very good. Number 2. Now we have one of the silver linings for the pandemic is the accessibility, being able to connect with people from all over the world. We have TikTok out there that, my children know what Reiki is because of TikTok, because they've seen somebody on there. How do you explain to people that do not believe that you can do a Reiki session or a Reiki training online, that they're insistent that this is only done one way and in person?
Mm. Oh yeah. I think that comes up a lot actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like for people that are new to Reiki, even from Reiki trained people, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think in a way, the confusion or the mistaken belief comes from the idea that Reiki is hands-on healing, that you need to be physically in the same room and touch someone in order for it to work. And maybe that's because, when you observe a Reiki session, that's what you see typically is someone doing hands on. So if you don't fully understand it, you might think that distant Reiki or remote Reiki, whatever you want to call it, can't work. Um, but some people are actually taught that in their training
Mm-hmm.
that, that's just the way it is. That's the way it should be. You have to do it with touch. But Reiki is energy, it's spiritually directed life force energy. So it is non physical to start with, right? It doesn't require physical touch. I mean, the physical touch is great and it's supportive in many ways, but you don't even need to be in the same room. You don't even need to be alive, actually, right? We can practice Reiki with people who have passed on, people that have not yet come into this world. But it's so easy to work with Reiki in a non, linear way or a non-physical way. It transcends space and time. When we use the distant Reiki symbol that we get in level 2, it's also called the oneness symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, and it's not like we are starting up or activating Reiki where we are and then sending it like, a bullet train to another person. And then they takes a little time and then they receive it. It's nothing like that. It's more that we understand through Reiki and we experience through Reiki that we already have a connection, that we're already interconnected. And so we don't need to touch them physically in order for them to experience the connection, in order for us to experience that deeper truth. Yeah, it's just part of the system of Reiki. And from, level 2, hopefully, people are starting to learn that and really deepen their understanding of it and their experience of it as they go into the master training and beyond, because it's a lifelong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, all of my sessions and all of my classes are distant. They typically are on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I can, sometimes I get on FaceTime or on the phone or off technology altogether to do a session. But it all works. And so many of my clients say that they have an even more profound experience with distant sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll be like laying in their bed, all
Mm-hmm.
curled up with the covers on and everything else during the session. And they can keep their camera off. I don't need to see them during
Mm-hmm.
that session. I don't need to hear them during the session, but a lot of times it's really nice to just do that in real time so that we can talk to each other and, talk like we would before a session and after a session. And then they can hear me. Um, some of my clients who were always in person were skeptical when I went
Mm-hmm.
to online starting in March of 2020. But most of them came around.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few that were like, yeah, I just can't go there. But
Yeah.
most of them did,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them are still my clients and love it because they don't have to travel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, you live in a warm place, but I live in a pretty cold place typically. And it was always hard, like for people, they're like, oh, I don't want to come out because it's icy. The roads are icy, or it's too dark, or it's expensive to travel. Like a lot of times I'd have people coming from like an hour or more away to
Mm-hmm.
come and see me for a session or for
Yeah.
a class. So there's no commute time. It's convenient. You're in your own space. You can have all the comforts that you need. You don't have to get up off of a table and go out into the cold and drive or anything like that. But yeah, it's for sure it can be done. And it's for somebody that kind of is questioning it, try it.
Yeah. Give it a
Right?
try.
Just
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. Every day, every morning I get up and I send Reiki to my sister and my dad, and I tell them, may all of their heavenly lessons be done with grace and ease and harm to none. So I do that every day.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. I practice distant Reiki every day too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can send distant Reiki to my day, right? As
Mm-hmm.
it's unfolding for myself as
Sure.
well, for anybody else. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. Number 3. Now, this came from a Reiki student who studied Uzui and was just questioning, there's many different systems, Amaria, money Reiki, crystal Reiki, kid Reiki. And so she said, seeing that you've had different systems as well, as a practitioner herself, do you think it's beneficial for someone to have multiple systems or styles of Reiki?
Hmm. Well, like I said, I have been trained in several different styles of Reiki, and I only practice one. I
Mm-hmm.
only practice Usui Holy Fire Reiki. Um, hmm. I don't necessarily think that it's that it's something that you really need to have or that it's beneficial, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was looking for the Goldilocks Reiki that worked for me
Mm-hmm.
perfectly, and I found it for sure. And so it was an evolution. I would just say, like, to start somewhere, but there can't be any mistakes. So you start somewhere and you're like, oh, maybe this, like your space that you were renting, maybe it works for a time and then you go to the next thing as you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that I would like quote unquote recommend it. Like I think you really need to have several styles of Reiki at your disposal, like so that when you're in a session you can use this one and then in the next session you might use a different one. I don't necessarily think that's the reason that you might do it. I think it's just kind of like what works for you in terms of um, the practices. Does it suit you at your level of evolution, at your level of practice right now? Does it suit you for your lifestyle and what you believe and how you want to work? I think that's maybe the question that you would ask yourself is more like, let me just kind of see and I know it can be confusing because
Mm-hmm.
people ask me this all the time. Do you know about this? Do you know about Dragon Reiki? Do you know about Money Reiki? About, Angel Reiki or whatever? And they're like, I want to know all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they think they're missing something. But you're really not missing anything. I mean, as long as you have a basic Reiki course that really has like the basic stuff in it, you can go in any direction you want to
Mm-hmm.
after that.
Right, right,
So I think
right.
that like maybe not, I wouldn't start with one of the fringier, more new ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would just look for one that has like covers the basic stuff
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then kind of see where you want to go from there.
Right. And I kind of looked at it, I guide people in a way to say your first one, get a good teacher, solid foundation. Once you go through that, you're at your master's, you can go take those online courses that you pay like $14 or $9 to learn
Mm,
Celtic Reiki in 3
mm,
hours, right? but
absolutely.
have that strong foundation. All right. Well, that was our last question. And as we were talking, is there anything you might have forgotten? Anything you'd like to share? Any message that you would like to give to the listeners? The floor is yours.
Well, one thing I'm thinking about is that I'm happy to say is that I'm going to be participating in the Reiki Business Summit that's coming up in
Yay.
September, and that's hosted by Christian Stone. And this is the second one we're doing, second year of it. And I'm going to be talking about different Reiki business paths that you can take. So we've been talking today about, different ways of working. And so I'm going to kind of just be going over like maybe all the different ways that Reiki can be expressed in terms of like bringing it out into the world. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that. And if anybody listening is interested in that, you can go check it out at reikibusinesssummit.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, Mary, so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me on this journey. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate your wisdom and knowledge, and hopefully the listeners are taking notes and listening again. And I'm sure they will be checking out you in that summit. That's a great summit, and what a blessing to have Christian to put that together. As you said in the interview, that when you started, you didn't have these guides. And here they are. Here they are. So many resources to help guide. It doesn't have to be a lonely journey. It doesn't have to be difficult. You have the helpers out there. Remember what Fred Rogers said, look for the helpers. They're out there.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's been so much fun talking to you.
Wonderful. All right, my wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on Ready, Set, Reiki, reach out, www.readysetreiki.com. I'm Tracy C. Wright, and this has been Ready, Set, Reiki.